Every agreement you made about who you are, you made as a child. And you didn't choose a single one. Now here's the unsettling part. The Kybalion says, the universe is mental. So what happens when a mental universe gets run by agreements someone else installed in you? 2 books, written 90 years apart. One is a 1908 Hermetic text. The other has sold over 10 million copies. Most people read them as 2 different things. One feels like cosmic philosophy you'd find in a dusty occult shop. The other sits on millions of nightstands as gentle self-help. But that surface couldn't be more misleading. They're describing the same machine, from 2 ends, and neither one is complete without the other. Here's the claim I want to earn today. Every one of the 4 agreements is an application of a Hermetic law. Ruiz gives you the practice. The Kybalion gives you the physics underneath it. Start with how the damage gets in. Ruiz calls it domestication. As a child, adults hook your attention and hand you the rules of reality through reward and punishment. You learn to chase approval and dodge punishment. And you internalize a whole book of law you never agreed to. And it doesn't stay neutral. That book of law installs 2 voices. A judge that measures you against every rule, and a victim that takes the punishment. Ruiz says they feed on your suffering. Most of what you call yourself is that loop running unattended. And here's what makes it so total. This isn't trauma. Trauma is an event. It happens to some people. Domestication is ambient. It happens to everyone, without exception. There's no childhood that escapes it. Now lay the Kybalion over that. Its very first principle. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Reality is not made of matter. It's made of mind. Put those together and you get something serious. You're running a mental universe, using software that was installed in you before you could read. There are 7 Hermetic principles: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. 4 of them map cleanly onto the 4 agreements. By the end, you'll see each agreement not as a rule to obey, but as a law you're already standing inside. Before the mapping, both books have to agree on one thing. And they do, in almost the same words. This is the moment that earns the whole thesis, so I want to slow down on it. Ruiz says the world you see is nothing but a dream, a collective dream of the planet, built from billions of smaller dreams. The Kybalion says that to the infinite mind, the entire universe is, quote, an illusion, a dream, a phantasmagoria. 2 traditions, 90 years apart. Both reach for the same word, dream. That's not a coincidence. That's the foundation. If reality is a mental dream, then everything that happens in it happens by mental law. And I want to be careful here, because this is where most comparisons go wrong. They say both books are about agreements, but the word means 2 different things. In the Kybalion, the universe agrees to run on law. In Ruiz, you agreed, as a child, under pressure, to a story about yourself. Don't flatten those into one. The mapping is deeper than a shared vocabulary word. First law, mentalism. The universe is mental, and the first agreement. Be impeccable with your word. Watch what Ruiz says the word actually is, not description, creation. Quote, your word is the power that you have to create. And then this, the word is like a seed, and the human mind is so fertile. Impeccable comes from the Latin, without missing the mark. It was never about being morally clean. It's about precision. Now you see why. In a mental universe, every word is a cause. Speak it inside or out loud. It plants. So impeccability isn't a virtue. It's accuracy in operating the only material you've got, mind. And the inverse lands hard. Ruiz calls gossip black magic at its very worst, because it is pure poison. Of course it is. A careless word in a mental universe isn't rude. It's a miscast spell. And the most important word you ever speak isn't aimed outward at all. Ruiz says being impeccable is, at its core, not using the word against yourself. In a mental universe, I'm an idiot isn't a description. It's a cause, planted in the most fertile soil you own, your own mind, you are casting on yourself, all day, in a whisper. Second law, correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. Every plane mirrors every other. And the second agreement, don't take anything personally. Here's the line that turns this agreement into a law. Ruiz writes, "You take it personally because you agree with whatever was said. As soon as you agree, the poison goes through you." Read that as correspondence. Nothing outside reaches you unless something inside corresponds to it. The insult doesn't land because it's true. It lands because a matching agreement is already in you, waiting. So when something stings, the Kybalion gives you a different question than, "How dare they?" The question becomes, what inside me just agreed? As below, so above. The outer event is reporting on the inner law, and correspondence runs both ways. As above, so below, and as below, so above. So this isn't just a defense, it's a diagnostic. Every reaction you can't explain is pointing straight at an agreement you didn't know you'd made. The people who upset you most are handing you a map of your own book of law. That's why the same insult destroys one person and bounces off another. Nothing changed about the word. What changed is whether there was a matching agreement inside for it to land on. Remove the inner agreement, and the cause has nothing to produce its effect against. Third and fourth laws together. Vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves. And polarity. Everything is dual. Opposites are the same thing at different degrees. The agreement. Don't make assumptions. An assumption does something specific to reality. It takes a living, vibrating situation, one that could still move along its whole spectrum, and it freezes it, picks one pole, calls it true. Ruiz nails the trap. The problem with making assumptions is that we believe they are the truth. Quote, "We could swear they are real." You're not reading the situation anymore. You're frozen at one end of a pole that was still moving. That's why the fix is so small and so powerful. Ask a question. A question keeps the field vibrating. It refuses to collapse a living spectrum into a dead story. And polarity hands you something most people miss. The Kybalion says opposites are identical in nature, different in degree. Fear and courage aren't two things. They're one continuum, which means you never have to fight an assumption. You raise it. You don't delete the fearful story. You slide it up its own pole toward the open one. This is also why what you resist persists. Fight an assumption head-on, and your attention pins it in place. But raise its degree, meet a frozen story with a genuine question, and it simply dissolves into the next pole up. No war required. Fifth law. Rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. And the last agreement. Always do your best. This is the agreement people most often turn into a whip. Do your best, and they read it as be at 100%, always. Then they fail, because no one is. But watch what Ruiz actually says. Your best is never going to be the same from one moment to the next. Different when you're rested versus tired, healthy versus sick. Your best has tides. That is the law of rhythm. Your energy swings like a pendulum because everything does. So a low-tide best is still your best. The agreement only stops being self-judgment once you see the swing isn't your failure. It's the law. And the Kybalion adds the master's move on top. It calls it the law of neutralization. You can't stop the pendulum, but you can refuse to ride it. You rise to a higher level and watch the swing happen without being carried by it. That's the difference between having a low day and becoming a low day. Ruiz draws the exact same line. Do less than your best, he says, and you get frustration, self-judgment, guilt. Do more than your best, and you deplete your body. The target isn't maximum, it's honest. Your real best, right now, on this tide. Hit that, and he says there's no way you can judge yourself. Now you might be counting. 7 principles, 4 agreements. What about the last 2? Cause and effect isn't really a 5th mapping. It's running underneath all 4. Every cause has its effect. Chance is just a name for law you haven't recognized yet. That's the engine each agreement plugs into. Your word causes. Your inner agreement causes. That's why these aren't suggestions. They're leverage points on a law that's already running. And the seventh, gender. The principle that everything has a creative and a receptive pole. I'm not going to force onto an agreement just to make the numbers tidy. There are 4 agreements. 4 laws map cleanly. A good synthesis knows when to stop mapping. That restraint is part of the honesty. Now, if I stopped here, I'd be cheating you. Because these 2 books are not the same book. And the difference is the whole point. The Kybalion is cosmological, impersonal. It describes laws that run whether or not you ever wake up to them. Aeons, the infinite mind, pure mechanics. Ruiz is intimate, relational. The damage happens in the dream we share with other people, family, culture, the mirror of every relationship. So the Kybalion gives you the laws, with no map of the wound. Ruiz gives you the wound, with no map of the laws. One without the other leaves you stranded. Cosmic physics you can't apply, or a healing practice you don't understand. Think about why that matters. The Kybalion will tell you the universe is mental and your word is a cause. True, but it won't tell you why your inner voice is so cruel, why the word you cast on yourself is usually an insult. For that, you need Ruiz. You need the Domestication, the judge, the book of law you never signed. The laws explain the mechanism. Ruiz explains how the mechanism got corrupted. Let me make this concrete, because the mapping isn't just elegant. It changes what you do. When the agreements were rules, you obeyed them with willpower. As laws, you work with them instead. Catch yourself mid-insult, inward or out, and you're not being good, you're refusing to plant a cause. Feel a sting, and instead of defending, you ask what inside me agreed. Notice a story hardening, and you ask a question to keep it moving. Have a low day, and you let your best be a low-tide best, with no judge allowed. Same 4 agreements. But now each one is a place where you reach into a law that's already running, and adjust it. That's the difference between discipline and leverage. Willpower exhausts. Working with a law doesn't. But hold them together, and something clicks. The Kybalion tells you the universe runs on mental law. The 4 agreements tell you what happens when that law runs through a wounded mind, and how to reclaim it. Once you know the laws, the agreements stop being rules and become applications. You're not trying to be a good person, white-knuckling 4 commandments. You're learning to work with the nature of mind itself, the same mind the universe is made of. And the moment you truly see that, I promise you, you can never read either book the same way again. So here's my question for you. Of the 4, the word, taking things personally, assumptions, your best, which law are you most clearly standing inside right now? Tell me below. I read them. And if the dream idea pulled at you, that reality itself is a shared mental construction. That's the doorway to the next one. I'll meet you there. Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments what you'd like us to cover next. And check out our website, thedeepsynthesis.com, where we go deeper on every topic, plus a free convergence map waiting for you.